Hi everybody, it's Max again. This video is a follow-up to my last Asperger's video. See, last time I talked about intimate relationships, and at the end of the video I openly asked women with AS to email me their stories about being in relationships so I could do a separate video on it. Considering the fact that things I've previously discussed do not necessarily differ in terms of gender, like eye contact and meltdowns, I figured now might be a good time to try and get the female perspective. I received 4 emails, but today I'm only going to be reading 3 of them. Quickly, before I begin, I just want to address the one woman I left out. Abby, forgive me for not including your story. I'm not including it because unfortunately I had a hard time reading what you were saying, and the fact that it was longer than these 3 stories combined made me want to just keep it out for now. However, I want you to get in contact with me so that I can edit it, or we can edit it, and then I can do an entire video on your story. We'll do a Kingdom Hearts type thing, where this video will be titled 4.5 and the next one will be 4.8. Anyways, to the 4 women who sent in the letters, thank you so much. You're doing a great service to people with AS and those who want to learn more. So, on with the video. This first letter comes to us courtesy of a woman named Patricia. I grew up understanding that there was a clear distinction between myself and the people around me. During the formative years of pubescence, I noticed that these differences only grew stronger in intensity. As my peers began dating and getting intimate, I only felt a stronger disconnect. As a female on the spectrum, I received a very late diagnosis. I got diagnosed while attending university at the age of 18. By that time, I had already gone through the supposedly best 4 years of my life. There was never an inability to partake in intimacy because of the realization that my social skills were essentially governed by this neurological disorder, but it felt more like a biological impairment. I had no interest in sex, at least not initially, but as I grew older, the act became intriguing. But it encompassed all the components of daily life that made me uncomfortable, especially living in a day and age where I'm expected to act sexually provocative and where my submission is implicit. There is not a lot of leeway for a girl with AS to fit in with the crowd. Needless to say, I've had my fair share of dating experience, and although I'm 19 now, I've still retained my virginity. It's never been for religious purposes or lack of sexual interest, it's because of the lack of ability to connect to people emotionally. The most difficult aspects in terms of attraction tend to be the lack of need to make myself seem attractive. Biologically, the female of the species is not as attractive in contrast to the male counterpart. In my case, my Asp brain doesn't see the need to change my appearance. As most males I've interacted with base their attraction to me on outward appearance, I don't tend to attract many potential sexual partners. I'm lucky that this hasn't been the defining factor that has ended romance for me. I'm lucky to have found someone who, although doesn't have AS/ASD himself, has provided me with the patience that I require. I too have been sexually harassed by people who took advantage of my naivety. In my case, I became the target of a peer's sexual perversion. My innocence became almost something of a kink. I was groped openly in a school setting, but I was never rescued from that situation. I was stuck around people who wanted to pervert me, and unfortunately at the time, I was still a closeted Aspie, and still had issues advocating for myself. I was assured that these things were normal to do, and me being me, I took this at face value to be true. But AS/ASD doesn't define me as asexual, and it's hard especially because my ASD borders with a plethora of many other issues. ASD also accompanies OCD, ADHD, and anxiety. Thus, this makes for a difficult time with intimacy. And some may argue that this may make me an ideal candidate for one-night stands because I lack the ability to emotionally connect with others, but once again, there are sensory issues that create a barrier. I cannot stand being touched, and even with a partner who I'm romantically involved with, I struggle to maintain eye contact. And that is the end of her letter. Moving on. This next story comes from a woman that goes by the moniker Ice Whip Rocks, although she also is called Jess. I've been diagnosed with AS since I was about 2, so I've been aware of it all my life. However, that didn't make things much easier for me. My main symptoms were social anxiety, the inability to read emotions, inappropriate displays of extreme emotion, such as crying for no reason, becoming angry very quickly, etc., things like that. My parents basically trained me to quote-unquote act normal, and as I grew older, I learned how to hide my emotions, perhaps about 30 to 40% of the time. My high school was small, and even though we had what most would consider cliques, everyone was relatively nice to each other, save for the outlying school bully here and there. I had friends, and I even had a few crushes. I liked boys and I wanted to date, but I never did. Dating in high school was just something that I never considered as an option for me. I didn't have much of an interest in it, basically because I thought that I was too broken and unlovable to ever get a guy's attention. After all my normal friends were dealing with fights and breakups and relationship drama. What hope did a basket case like me have with finding a romantic partner? So I didn't even try. Why bother when I knew it would end in disaster? Looking back, I'm glad I didn't date, even if it was due to an inaccurate mindset. School was stressful enough without worrying over boys and dates and gifts and what would happen after graduation and all that. My mind was already on overdrive with school, homework, family, friends, church, worrying about college, worrying about the future, etc. Trying to jam in a romantic relationship would have melted me down into a quivering puddle. I went to college not expecting to find love until after graduation, going along with the same level of thinking I had in high school. I was getting a little better at controlling my emotions and social anxiety. After all, only seeing my classmates thrice a week rather than every day took a load off of my shoulders, and being able to log onto the Wi-Fi and take an anime break helped deal with the stress. And as it turned out, I actually found my husband while in college, but I found him in a less than orthodox place. I used to love going on a website called GaiaOnline.com, which is like an anime-themed young adult anonymous social media. A guy my age messaged me because I said on my profile that I liked to write and he wanted to find a writing partner. I'll spare you all the mushy goop and tell you that we took a liking to each other and decided to date over the internet. I'll make a long story super short. We messaged online, we graduated to texts and phone calls. It was a long distance for about 5 years before he moved from Alabama to California so we could be together. And after an additional 3 years, we got married. Last April. Congratulations, by the way. When it started, I was nervous. My sister had gone through 2 internet boyfriends and had her heart broken both times. However, he was the first guy that had ever expressed interest in me. He actually spoke up, without any flirting, hinting, or provocation, and said that he liked me. At the time, it seemed like an absolute fantasy to think that someone actually saw worth in a giant mess like me. I wanted to give him a chance. Looking back, I think that fact that we started out as a long-distance relationship was for the best. For the first few years of us getting to know each other, I didn't have to worry about talking too loud or saying something stupid because I basically typed everything I said to him. I didn't have to worry about reading body language or worry about what every little movement meant because I couldn't see him. And not having body language to lean on, it trained us to speak fully and openly about what we were saying in the most descript, non-figurative way possible. He couldn't sigh and wait for me to ask what was wrong. If he wanted to talk about his problems, he had to start talking about them. Having our first interactions over the internet allowed us to get to know each other without worrying about the drama that usually comes with dating. We had our first fight over instant messaging, and despite how uncomfortable it was to talk about that stuff, it wasn't accompanied with yelling and screaming and blurting out stupid things and an emotional outburst. I could fully think out what I wanted to say and what I truly meant before hitting the send button. We could talk without all the drama of talking weighing it down and making it worse. Us being together in person was an adventure. He had to understand my emotional needs and quirks. He had to learn to deal with his anger without yelling, because even if he wasn't yelling at me, I would feel guilty for not being able to keep him from getting angry. I had to continue to mature in order not to have a meltdown in public and embarrass him, which was a little easier when I had someone who was willing to let me cry on his shoulder at home when I needed it. I didn't move in with him until after we were married. I noticed that I've been more open with my emotions, and even though it's led me to more tears, I feel free. I never felt comfortable crying in my own home because of my parents. Ever since after high school, my parents became a lot less tolerant of my outbursts because I was an adult and I needed to act like it. Oh, I hear you there. My husband allows me to be the emotional person I am, and it's made my stress go way down. Even though I have to nudge myself to do so, I can be social with people and even partake in a little small talk. I can more easily ask for help when I need it. I can feel comfortable crying in a way I never could before because I know he doesn't judge me. I'm not saying that long-distance relationships are the cure for AS dating woes. We had a particular set of circumstances that allowed us to make it work for us. However, between having a way to date with less worry and the fact that my husband is an amazing man, things worked out for me and my long-distance relationship. I was able to form a durable bond with the man I love because of it. Well, once again, congratulations to you, and I hope that everything continues to work out well for you in the future. Thanks so much for sending in your letter. This third letter comes to us courtesy of a woman named Sarah, and it's probably the shortest out of all of them. I'm not sure how to preface this or just dive right into my experiences, so I'll save some time and dive right in. My boyfriend is what I describe as a high-input person. He's very affectionate and loves to cuddle, touch, and be touched. Some mornings, he turns into an octopus and wraps me up with his arms and legs. That's when I start feeling like a feral cat close to clawing my way to freedom and hiding somewhere until he calms down. I'm a little less anti-touch compared to when we first got together, but there are times where even touching arms as we read in bed is uncomfortable. We both agreed that noise is super effective against me. I need earplugs to maybe get a good night's sleep, while he needs background noise just to doze off. Anytime he makes a noise, which is nearly constant when he gets bored, I lose the ability to hear what I was listening to. It's a little annoying, as you can imagine, to be relaxing to some calm music and get snapped out of it by someone talking to themselves across the room or even the next room over. It's like an overactive mommy sense with no filter or off switch. He's been very understanding of how we're very different and tries to get me used to stressful things like loud noises, constant touch, and helps me when making phone calls so I don't get too awkward and weird. It's thanks to his patience and hard work that I finally stopped punching the sides of my head when frustrated, but I still have a hair trigger when things go slightly wrong. Now for the awkward part of closing out. Thank you for reading my story, and I hope this helps with your video. Well, it certainly does help with my video, and thank you so much for sending this letter in, Sarah. I'm so glad that you're actually able to get things to work out. I'm so glad that you're able to find a boyfriend that is tolerant of all of the typical AS quirks that you and I both have. And that was all the letters I received. Thank you so much for taking the time to write these stories and send them in, ladies. I hope the process was cathartic for you, and I'm sure what you had to say will be of great help to the women who watch this video, and some of the men as well. The next official video in the Truth About Asperger series will be coming soon, and it will be on the subject of narrow interests. Until then, stay tuned for a couple of other videos coming down the pipeline, and make sure to share this or other videos on my channel. Please and thanks.